Hello and welcome to today's onboarding on expense management. In Lanes and Planes, you can add expenses to already booked trips or record expenses that do not belong to a specific trip. Both options are available in the user account under Bookings and Tickets. We will now begin with the first scenario. I have booked a trip in Lanes and Planes and now I would like to add my expenses to this trip. I select the requested trip and now I can add my expenses in the section Expenses. In the first section, I select the type of expense, the expense category. We differentiate between meal allowance, receipt, and mileage allowance. We start with entering a mileage allowance. For the mileage allowance, the start and the destination location must be specified. As a result, desired addresses can be entered and the kilometers traveled are automatically calculated by the system using Google Maps in the background. Consequently, the gross amount is also automatically calculated. If you also drove back, you can add another route including to this trip. If you traveled more kilometers than the system also calculated, you can also adjust the number of kilometers accordingly. If you now have a closer look to the gross amount below, you will see that the gross amount is automatically adjusted by the system based on the adjusted kilometers traveled. You must indicate whether you traveled with a private car or with a pool vehicle. The currency must be specified. The gross amount is already calculated by the system. And the date as well as the originator is a mandatory field. Depending on which mandatory fields are defined by your company, you have to fill out a cost center or the reference code. Very important, if you adjusted the kilometers here, please use the comment field to add the comment for your supervisor or accounting department so they know why you adjusted these kilometers. Now I can save my mileage allowance and add it to the trip. I can see the mileage allowance I just entered, and since I haven't submitted it for review yet, I can still edit it, view it, or delete it. I can add additional expenses if I want to. In the next section, I would like to add a meal allowance to the requested trip. The departure and return date are already taken from the booked travel service. If I left home earlier or later, I can adjust these information. It is now mandatory to select the per diem rate. Based on this, the rate available under German regulations is used. There are also certain cities with different allowances. This is clearly shown using the example of Paris, France. If you were in Paris, please select the city accordingly so the correct allowance is applied. If you traveled across borders to another country, you can also add another country in the following section. In the next section, I have to confirm that I don't exceed the 3-month limit, and now the travel time can be calculated. The software now calculates the days of my business trip, and I can specify which meals were provided. On arrival and departure days, I select the provided meals. And on the full travel day, I must enter the corresponding amount. If I also used a privately paid overnight stay, I must indicate it in the following section so that the statutory allowance is also calculated accordingly. By clicking on Calculate Meal Allowance, the statutory allowances are applied and appropriately reduced based on the meal provided. The software calculates this automatically, and the resulting gross amount is what I am entitled to. Again, depending on the company, any required mandatory fields must be complete, and with this information I can save my meal allowance by clicking on Save. Once I have recorded all my expenses and would like to submit them for review, I must ensure that both my trip and the expenses are in the past. Only then I can click on the Submit for Approval button. In our example, the trip is not yet in the past, so I cannot click this button yet. Until then, I can continue to add expenses, and in our example, I could submit them all together for review on the 26th of May. That was the example of how expenses can be added to an existing trip in Lanes and Planes. As already mentioned, in Lanes and Planes, you can also record expenses that are not linked to a specific trip. For this, we're going to the user account, bookings and tickets, and down below I have the button Add Expense Report. I can do this if I work, for example, in the office management, had expenses but did not travel, so I can create these expense reports. First, I have to fill out the title, and then I have to enter the location as well as the start and end date. I can create this expense report for a day or for a month or for a longer period, so the submitter or recorder can choose the start and end date by themselves. Depending on the mandatory information defined by my company, these must be also selected in the next section. I can now create my expense report. You can think of it like this. I have now created a folder, and in this newly created folder I can add my expenses that are not related to a trip. Again, I have to select the expense type. I now like to create a receipt. I must specify the country and also indicate whether I paid the expense privately or if it's paid by company card. The currency is also mandatory, as well as the date and of course the originator. Depending on the mandatory fields defined by your company, these must also be indicated by the following section. And very important, a category or general ledger account must be selected. This standard set is available to all companies in Lanes and Planes. If these categories are not sufficient, please contact your direct contact person at Lanes and Planes so that a corresponding adjustment can be made. In the further course, a VAT rate and the amount must be specified, and I can select whether it's gross or net. Very important for internal and external hospitality, or typically also for tips, which can additionally be recorded here, I can add another item. I add another line item and record the tip. When recording a receipt, a corresponding receipt is of course also mandatory. And after entering this, I can save my receipt. The software now checks which category, which ledger account was selected in. If further information is relevant, you will be informed via the following banner. For internal and external hospitality, accounting requires further information, so questions have now opened. These must be filled out in the next section, and only after providing the reasons and the participants, I can finally save my receipt. The expense is now displayed in the next section, and again, only once the expense report and the expenses lie in the past, they can be completed and submitted in the following section. I must now confirm that the expense was correctly recorded, that the original images are correct and legible, and click on Submit. Depending on the process defined by your company, the expense is now sent for manager approval and accounting review, or only for accounting review. Whether manager approval is irrelevant for your company can be defined in the company account under Settings and Policies. I would now like to refer to our Help Center in the end. Via Help and FAQs, you will reach the Help Center of Lanes and Planes, where you can find many helpful articles and video guides. At the very end of the Help Center, you can also view the opening hours of Lanes and Planes support team, and you always have the opportunity to contact the support team by phone or email.